And one of the things I never heard Matau mention is that the Toho Bear used to call Toho Fire Spitter too many times. But of course, Matau was one of them who who managed to call Vakama by his name in both that and Legend of Metro Nui. Yeah. But now he kind of refers to him Vakama many times during the time when he tries to bring him back. And people could say he could be compared to Darth Vader, to Anakin Skywalker, and he's kind of like Obi-Wan Kenobi. Since Star Wars 3 released the same year as this film did, it kind of gave a reference to it. But of course, different from that is it was a woman who defected Vakama and a man who defected Anakin. And one thing I did not know is that Legend of Metro Nui, Anawa's character wasn't like a doofus in Legends of Metro Nui, but they now treated Anawa's character to be a bit like a doofus. Is what I mean by that. There are some elements that kind of makes him like he kind of did not understand the name Kitangu. When he said the Kita Nangu, Norik laughed at him. And one of the things I don't get is while Vakama was trying to struggle his bizarre behavior, the others managed to struggle themselves. Maybe because it was due to faith broken, that's what kind of caused him to feel that way. And Rudaka said she knows a great deal about him, for that's how she knows his name. I'm feeling whatever was going on during the transformation to the cocoons might have been why, or maybe Pterodax might have told her when he was, even if he was stuck in that prison, he might have told her through communication. If he saw her talking to that giant stone somewhere after Norik introduced himself, when she said she made drain of the elemental power scene, they kind of got communications. And exactly how Pterodax found it. Remember when he costumed up Turaga Duma, he called him by that name. And even the visions that Vakama goes to, you could hear Pterodax's voice saying his name. But speaking of visions, this film, after they defeated Pterodax, Vakama never had the visions playing in his head. That's one of the things that never happened. But according to Greg Farty in Bionic 601, Vakama is known to have visions of something that could predictably happen. But this film is according to 2005, is the only year where he doesn't have visions at all. Even though it kind of makes it look like that the visions are now gone because he's now a Toa. But according to the canon initial storyline, the visions did come back to him. According to how Vakama explained Motoro died. According to how Vakama explained that he found out Motoro died. Right. That you get the idea. Originally I thought they were going to repeat that scene where they transformed to Turaga, but actually they don't. After the airships fly through the hole leading the Ana Mata Nui, that's when the story ended and Turaga Vakama picks up the stones, saying that their destinies are not written in them. So to find one destiny, they have to find that destiny themselves thing. So that's how they kind of ended. Right. Technically, because Legends of Metro Nui had to show the transformation to Turaga, so that way they could end the film with the three virtues. It was the three dots and two curves of the three virtues. Technically, the three dots and two curves is around it. Yeah, the Miramax version is more likely to end that way. And second of all, the beginning of this film says before becoming Turaga, the United Digital pledged rescuing the Tron. So they kind of talked about how they transformed Turaga, but they did something more. They did something else before that, which is continuing to return more Matoran. For instance, they only rescued a handful of Matoran in the end of the second film, and the transformation to Turaga showed they already got all the Matoran. Meaning the storyline did conclude in this. The storyline did conclude in 2005 with this. And you could hear Pterodactyl's voice a little bit, despite that the credits didn't despite he was uncredited in the film. In the comics, when the Toru returned, I did not understand why they were all coated up and stuff. But looking at this film, I was able to understand why that is. Because of the tower situation, they almost crashed, but they did survive after all. But Kama stood up and questioned in a tough leadership way. But then he kind of downed his leadership control after seeing he kind of played rough. But then got back to his senses and decided to command a very calm order, calm but important order. But the favorite part about this film is technically the transformation into Hordika, despite that the arm transformation was the only thing shown and the rest of the body got transformed instantly. But why? Because we have this in Legend of Metro Nui where they kind of began as Matoran, then to Toa. We have a film version of the way they become Matoran, then to Toa, then to Hordika, loop back to being Tometro again, and then the Turaga. And how Mask of Light, their histories are, and during Mask of Light when they were Turaga, the history's already written about their story of transformations. And second of all, because the emotions are more, because the hearts and emotions are more stronger in the film, during when they were Toa, you never matter how that feels like when transformed into the cocoons and exposed to webbings, and how Vakama kind of evolved becoming evil, and then temporarily got back being good again. Those are the favorite parts about it. But other than that, the transformation is the only favorite part about this film. The rest of it is good. The emotion is the ending. The ending was kind of heart emotioned, and because this and because one thing I have to admit is that the first time I've watched Legends of Metro Nui, I kind of hit to tears at the ending of the film, even though that's not the end. Even though that's not the end of all the Miramax drafts of the film. This film I almost hit to tears once. And it's the way the music theme was, the way Nathan Fields played the music theme when the Ushers fly out of the Coliseum with all the Matoran in their hands. Despite the Pterodactyl's escape, you do get the idea the ending was a bit motioned, and for second of all, Vakama showed that they will defeat him, and heck they didn't, and heck they did. He was stopped in 2001, 2003 storyline because you want to know what. Because the reason why I mean by in 2001, 2003 is because the Metro Nui storyline took place 1,000 years before. The Metro Nui storyline took place 1,000 years before 2001. If you remember the Legend of Metro Nui review and the behind the scenes of the film talking about it, and the comics, second of all, explained about that. And at least a Tower of Fire is not at least a Tower of Fire is not much of an upset emotion, but it's very a confident emotion. And Mato is kind of not Mato nowhere near doesn't have to worry about humor embarrassing him because he's more of he is more of a central character in the film than he did in Legends of Metro Nui. This film is more somber than the two other. This film's more dark and somber than the two others. It's because the first two films were kind of like kind of heartful emotions, but this is more somber. It's more of a somber heart due to transmission to Hortica, and everything's all darker qualitied. Darker quality I think it was darker quality ever since they kind of sharing DC's idea of how this was a regular quality. This is darker quality. During when the logo transformed halfway 2005. So they kind of shared like that. So that's why Bionicle nowadays shared the dark quality from DC. Yeah, I think the partnership with DC was the stronger reason. Was kind of a stronger importance than any other media. But at least it's a good film. I think it used to be like £10. I think it used to be £10 in Woolworths. Because I bought this in the previous two films from Woolworths. Of course I got Mask of Light out on VHS on Woolworths, Toys R Us on Digital Disc, Legends of Metro Nui on VHS on Woolworths, and bought it online. This one on Digital on Woolworths. And you want to know where's the VHS tape? Kind of because I bought the VHS tape of Mask of Light. Then I decided whether the Digital Disc, find out how that goes. And I was going to buy the Digital Disc for Legends of Metro Nui, but they didn't have that, so I bought VHS and got stuck with it for like from 2004 to like 7 years I had the VHS tape, then I bought the digital hard disc, was found the most features of that. But because Weber's Child was already out on October 10th, and I thought about it, and because I thought October 11th means everywhere else, everywhere of every region around the world, but actually, on October 10th, actually when it was October 10th, the film was already out, and I decided to buy that, and I got into digital hard disc. What means by October 11th is only for the United States. That's because back then when I was young, I wasn't aware that different date releases kind of represent different regions. But then until 4 years later, with the Glatorian film release, The Legend Reborn came out, I did understand region. I was able to understand that region releases. For example, this was October 10th in our country. Australia was another date. Australia was another date and month, I think, while United States is obviously October 11th. Les Metronome was around like October 19th in the US, while ours is October 11th. Mask and Fly, our country is September 29th, and in the United States, September 16th. Legend Reborn is like September 15th in the US, ours is October 5th in the United Kingdom, and Australia is September 2nd. And hope you enjoyed this film review, and I'll be catching you up with a Bionicle game review, just so that we could kind of loop to the 2006 plot and the story review of it. For now, Taramad 88 signing off.